Yo, in an omni out of four Christ Jesus, we sign Emma Makwaba Edmobada the hour of prayerism and also the hour of prayerism. Um, me, I make a say a frame on your Solomon Bedu, me or Brabadico Fulria Church of Christ or Central Region. It's just by the Sir Oko Jokwa, in fact, on your way to Kaku National Park, there's a peri-urban settlement just by the the road leading to Kaku National Park. That is where we have our congregation. Now, so that for some time now, no, ɛwɔ yɛn dwumadi a yɛato no din the hour of prayerism so anaasɛ the hour of prayerism so no, yɛ discuss biribi anaasɛ yɛ discussion no ɛfa kasa bi a yɛatwerɛ wɔ First Corinthians chapter 11. Sorry, First Corinthians chapter 5, verse 1 to 4. No, specifically, Paul's hope of the coming house, which is not built with hands, after the dissolution of that tabernacle or that earthly tabernacle, which is made with hands. Now, I know you can say all the time, sometimes you call funerals, you call years, and I make Second Corinthians chapter 5, or normal kind, verse 1 following normal kind. Now, I didn't hear what says, Paul can say earthly house, this tent, he was talking about our physical flesh. And the also Bible, no, I say chapter division, ɛyɛ na ama yɛfa chapter biara sɛ yɛ separate from preceding and I say the next chapter no yɛhu sɛ yɛ different things but related. So ɔhwɛ Second Corinthians chapter 3, chapter 4, and chapter 5 and chapter 6 so wobɛhu sɛ yɛ the same subject matter ɛna ne nyinaa saa chapters nyinaa dɛn ɛka ho asɛm ɛwɔ hɔ. The end of the law, the fact that we are not under the jurisdiction of Moses or the law, the Mosaical law, as well as we being the able ministers of the new covenant, according to 2 Corinthians chapter 3. And see, almost all this while is talking about transition, from the old covenant to the new covenant. And to say, baby, do 2 Corinthians chapter 5, now, baby, who said we are talking about two houses. Houses, I say one is made with hands. That is of this world, is of this earth or the land, in anticipation of the the coming one, which is not made with hands. Now, you know, say, well, earthly tent, we are talking about our physical flesh. Okay, that after demise, we are not going to put on that building or that house from God, which is not made with hands. But and I actually say some reason, a wrong, a mistake, because it cannot be true. Paul never had in mind, this physical, body being the earthly tent. No, That is not that, but he was rather talking about something different. And I can't the last time no say well, and then you better be you share previous videos now. Yaka, yeah, I think 3 videos to that effect. I think this is the fourth video or the third video. And she said, "Ocean previous videos now. Your church and some baby, then ho." And your YouTube channel, no, the hour of prayerism, and I said the hour of prayerism. And so about the hour of prayerism now, do be call a page, you know. Now what you must subscribe na videos na one na when you be a share. Nti yɛka sɛ saa wei no ntumi yɛ nokorɛ saa now sɛ wohwɛ second corinthian a yɛnsa yɛntie asɛm a paul ɛka ne wɔ hɔ second corinthians chapter 5 verse 1 to 4 no paul say, for we know that if our earthly house this tabernacle so what was that tabernacle in the first century? Where did God has his throne among the people in the first century? You understand? It was the Jerusalem temple, you know, that divine component called the most holy. That is where we have the Ark of Covenant with the mercy seat, being the cherub, you know, the ranks of, you know, angels, you know, meeting together. That is where we call the mercy seat. That is where God has his throne. Okay, so Paul is saying that for we know that if our earthly house, this tabernacle, is destroyed, so we have to. Did they say Paul the time in the old first century? You know, now let's remember say, First Corinthians chapter 10 verse 11. Paul said the end of age, you know, the end of that age has come upon him and his contemporaries. Okay, and see, Paul was looking for this building from God, which is not made with hands. Okay, at the end of the destruction of the existing tabernacle. Okay, now Paul's end of age is also the time of the destruction of this earthly house. Okay, and all the time now, yeah, like I said, the kingdom of God was not established in AD 33. It was rather established in AD 70 when Jerusalem temple fell. So because so long as the old covenant system, the Jerusalem temple had validity, you know, the law of Moses was still in effect. Okay, everything was going on as before until it was pulled down in AD, 70. So okay, Hebrew chapter 9, verse 6 to 10 ɛbɛka saa asɛm no akyerɛ wɔ hɔ sɛ so long as old covenant system no old covenant system no ɛwɔ validity no deɛ new system no ntumi yɛ dɛn ɛmba so Paul na ɔhwɛ time a yɛbɛdwiri deɛ ɛde nsa no ayɛ no ɛfi hɔ na foforɔ no yɛamfa nsa ayɛ no yɛ dɛn yɛamfa nsa ayɛ no ɛbɛba nti saa kasa no yɛhwɛ a it means that Paul never had in mind our physical body or our physical flesh or being at the time of demise and putting on a spiritual house. No, that is not the explanation. He was rather talking about that house which was still in existence whilst he wrote this letter in somewhere AD 54, AD 55 or 56. So that Jerusalem temple was still standing, okay, when he wrote this. So ɔmɛ book na Jerusalem temple yɛ dɛn ɛwɔ hɔ nti ɛno na ɔyɛ dɛn ɔhwɛ sɛ ɔne de bɛfi hɔ sɛdeɛ ɛbɛyɛ foforɔ no a ɛba no nipa mfa ne nsa yɛ no ɛbɛyɛ dɛn ɛbɛba ɛwɔ hɔ. So ɔkan Jesus so ɛka asɛm bi ɛwɔ Matthew chapter I believe 23 verse 34 to 38 no. Jesus ɛka asɛm bi wɔ hɔ ɛfa Jerusalemfoɔ na ɔmo angye ndi na ɔmo kunkum asomafoɔ no eku ɔno Jesus koraa ɛka ho no. Asɛm a Jesus ka no hɔ ɛne sɛ deɛ Jesus ka no hɔ ne sɛ verse 34 no of Matthew chapter 23 no ɔsɛ woe to you scribes and Pharisees hypocrite for you 34 no ɔsɛ Therefore, indeed, I send you I send you prophet, wise men, and scribes. Some of them, some of them you will kill and crucify. Some of them you will scourge in your synagogues and persecute from city to city. No mind I can say, Matthew chapter 10 verse 23. Jesus Christ says, "You persecute me or more one city in Jerusalem, or journey to another city." No sure mo boss say, "Omo ko Jerusalem, krumu hina and we till so bad or yeah, na yeah, prayer rest, no, that's a prayer rest. Because Jesus Christ has come, the second coming of Christ occurred in AD 70. Yeah, na yeah, asem ewo. In fact, a lot of people don't believe that, but that is the gospel truth. That is the reality of the scriptures. And so, how do we then explain, Matthew chapter 10, verse 23, See, Mama and share a honor so and see a whole. Now, um, so verse 35 says that on you will come all the righteous blood shed on the earth, from the blood of righteous Abel to the blood of Zechariah, son of Berechiah, whom you murdered between the temple and the altar. 36 says, assuredly I say to you, all these things will come upon this generation. So I'll come back to chapter 24, verse 34. Also, the same generation, they will suffer, this fate. Now, 37 says, O Jerusalem, the one who kills the prophet and stones those who are sent to her. How often I wanted to gather your children together as hen gathers her chicks under her wings, but you were not willing. See, your house is left to you desolate. Okay, so that house which Jesus talked about, is the same house now. Paul ever kind of Matthew chapter 25, sorry, Matthew chapter 5, verse 1, so that earthly house is the same house of Matthew chapter 23, verse 37, and that house was the Jerusalem temple. Okay, it was left desolate. Remember, say Matthew chapter 24, verse um, 15. Jesus says, "Muhu say abomination, chiwade na ebo man na etwa Jerusalem. Muhu say na chiwade na ebo na iden." Abba, spoken of by Daniel. That is Daniel chapter 9, I think verse 27. Muhu say na ebo iden. Abba, so at that moment, the house was left desolate. It was left with no protection. Say, Ukan Josephus account now when Roman for attacked Jerusalem temple, a voice was heard. That voice is what Isaiah chapter 66, verse 6 9. God was withdrawing support and protection from them. So Jesus said, the house was left without hold, without protection as a result of the abomination which they, which they which they committed against the people of the way, that is the Christians of the first century. So the destruction of the temple and the people was in retribution to the persecution they subjected the saints of the first century into. Now, what kind of Second Corinthians chapter 1 verse 7 to 8, which is a quote from Isaiah chapter 66, verse 15. That is also the time of the wedding of Matthew chapter, 22. No, a man who said that coming of the Lord with flaming fire, no, or did occur in AD 70. Okay, when Jerusalem was set ablaze, the AD 70 pogrom of Jerusalem, of Jerusalem. Now, it was also fulfilled there in AD 70. Nti ne nyinaa no yɛ dɛ ɛkeka bobɔ ma ehu sɛ saa distraction no a Paul ɛka no sɛ when that earthly house, this tent is destroyed, it was reference to the Jerusalem temple, but not our physical, skin. So na yɛ dɛ ɛte hɔ. Nti sɛ ɔkan sɛdeɛ meka 1 Corinthians chapter 5 no. I say, for we know that if our earthly house, this tent is destroyed, we have a building from God, a house not made with hands, eternal in heaven. For in this we groan. Okay, so that was their eschatological hope. Okay, so they were yearning for the house that is to come. It was a promised inheritance, to them. Okay, Daniel chapter 12 verse 13. Bɔfo ka kyerɛ Daniel sɛ ɔno deɛ ɔnkɔda na time no so ɔbɛsɔre na waba abɛgye ne den ne inheritance. The inheritance is the kingdom. First Peter chapter 1 verse 4. So they were all had this hope of what entering into that new covenant temple, okay, which is not of this world, within which there's no cry, there's no death, and there's like I said, the coming of the kingdom was also the time of the marriage the marriage of the Lamb. Okay, Revelation chapter uh, uh, 19 verse 7 to 9. Revelation chapter 1 verse 1 to 5. So that was the time of the wedding. So there was entertainment and there was the feaster mood in the kingdom. Okay, I say, for this we groan, earnestly desiring to be clothed with our habitation, which is from heaven. So, okay, Matthew chapter 23, verse Matthew chapter 23, verse uh 37. Jesus says, "Here, your house is left desolate." Okay, so here it was empty, it was without no protection. Okay, so all those who were in that, in that system were desolate, kind of like destitute. Okay, spiritually they were destitute. They were with no hope. They were with no protection. Now munya hobambo biara den. Ewo ho at that material time no. No muni way biara ewo ho. And see, see all these now during the time of the gospel no. The gospel is yeah cancer pano na di je nkofo eba nkwagye mu no. That was their hope. Their hope was that at the end of the day, they will be now, have their Messiah in their midst. Okay, God will come upon his throne. That is, he will come with the kingdom and he will come in his, kingdom. That is upon his throne. Okay, and see, it was kind of like a transition from the old covenant system to the new covenant system. Now, that is where more normal engine, almost so as the Jews, na Judaism, na, more resist Christopher. No. So by so doing, they killed a lot of the Christians in the first century. Okay, but they did not lose hope because that tribulation and that persecution was a must to come. Okay, First Thessalonians chapter 3 verse 1 to 3. It was something that was to come. They were destined to suffer. Okay, see, Sana Eden, Paul Ekan or Act chapter 14 verse 23 said they must all suffer toward enter into the kingdom. Jesus himself, Luke chapter 24, verse 26, like I said, he must also suffer to enter into his glory. So the first century tribulation, was and I said about First Peter chapter 5 verse 1, Revelation chapter 1 verse 9, First Corinthians chapter 4 verse uh, 9. Okay, when he now made who say indeed no more than they were undergoing that tribulation. Okay, that was foretold by the mouth of Jesus Christ and the prophets. Um, uh, um, Jeremiah chapter 30 verse 6 to 7, Daniel chapter 12 verse 1 to 2, and Jesus be quoting Matthew chapter 24 verse 21 says that tribulation, it was something that was to come. Okay, and it was part of the the kingdom plan. It was something that was to come. So um now let's say the kind said they were yearning to be clothed because Paul said we are eagerly desiring to be clothed with our habitation which is from heaven. For us, if indeed we have been clothed, we shall not be found naked. So more in I think one of the churches in one of the seven churches in Revelation chapter 1 and 2 no. Ebinom say ebinom one of the church I think Philadelphia also or say me de ahwe hia me deɛ maame mewɔ atare hyɛ okay mewɔ everything na Jesus ka sɛ bɔfo no sɛ hwɛ wo ho yɛ mmɔbɔ you are hot you are desolate you are destitute you are naked okay so change your ways and be what be clothed. So those who belong to the the line of Judaism na they thought say they are still that is protected na yɛabɔ ɔmo wɔ ahobambɔ bi they were not naked because the temple, the Jerusalem temple, offered them some level of protection. But Omunim said, not spiritually, God was gradually, pulling support and pulling protection from them because of the abomination, the abominable things that they did. For the abomination, it is archetype of the Jews. They are found of committing abomination of all desolation. What kind of Ezekiel chapter 8, Ezekiel chapter 9 now be say Jew for na ya do mo yeden history ma who say one of the zealot leaders the between AD 66 up to AD 70 such zealot movement no more forming to resist Roman uh, rule no a wɔn nso they fought the Romans no saa nkurɔfoɔ wɔn leader baako no yɛfrɛ no Elijah Ben um, Simon. Yɛsɛ ɔno no kɔ Jerusalem temple hɔ. They overthrew the high priest na ɛwɔ hɔ no. God ordained high priest, and they overthrew him and they usurped his authority. Nti ɔno no ɛfa most holy wɔ most holy bebe Nyankopɔn ɛwɔ hɔ no. Ɛde wɔn yɛ ne command. Okay, ne command center na ɔda ma yɛ persecute Christians no. Efi so ɔhwɛ the walls of the temple na wɔn amark hɔ see they've desecrated the whole place. That was the abomination that brings what desolation. Okay, and sana eden ɛwɔ hɔ. They do not respect the temple, the authority of God, and the rules based of the Jewish temple cultus and the oblations. And already now, because God has already withdrew support from them. In fact, sɛ ɔmo apam na ɔmo Nyankopɔn kɔɔ no na emu yɛ den ɛtwitwe ɛde ba ɛnti saa asɛm no because of saa deɛ na ɔmo yɛ nti ɛna First Peter chapter 4 ɔka verse 7 na Peter kaa sɛ the end of all things is at hand. Adeɛ na ewie hia na yɛ den na ewie yi na yɛ den ɛba Paul sɛ ewie yi no ɛna yɛbɛnya new building no ma yɛ den aba no Peter so sɛ na Paul sɛ ewie yi no bɛba at the end of that age na ɔno so ka sɛ ɔno ankasa he was already living in that end of that age, 1 Corinthians chapter 10 verse 11. And Peter so kind of 1 Peter chapter 4 verse 7 say the end of all things has what comes, so they should be sober and be vigilant in prayers. Now can 1 Peter chapter 4 verse 17 now Peter say now is the time of judgment to begin at the house of the Lord. Now that house of the Lord now can I was the Jerusalem temple. Okay, the Jerusalem temple, because that is where they have the man of sin of 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. That man of sin is the one I told you about, the zealot leader. No, he was the man of sin, son of perdition, because he was only waiting for the Christ to come to to destroy him together with the temple. And see, now see Peter said now that is the time statement. Now, no, in his time, he says the temple, the destiny has come. The time has come for judgment to begin at the house of the Lord. So the house is what Paul referred to here. That was the earthly house. Okay, because God has already reduced support. God has already, reduced support and withdrew from them. So their covenant relationship was with God was about to end. Okay, Hebrew chapter 8, Hebrew chapter 7, verse 18, and Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 89. Who said the destruction of the Jerusalem temple ended that God's relationship with natural Israel, until from there onwards, there was from there onwards came the kingdom, and the new kingdom, which is or the new household of God. Ephesians chapter 2 verse 19, the new household of God, which is the temple, which is the new tabernacle, the new church. You see, this tabernacle must go off so that the new tabernacle will come. John who said the new tabernacle is what is now descending from heaven. That is Revelation chapter 21 verse 1 down to 5. That new tabernacle was coming because the old tabernacle had been destroyed. Okay, which is metaphorically called the old heaven and old earth. Okay, which is the representative of the Jerusalem temple. So that old system is waning off and the new one is being formed. Sana Eden, God has already reduced support, and their covenant relationship with Christ or with God was already about to cease, so that the new one, which is of no respect of race, color, ethnics, or whatever. Galatians chapter 3 verse 28 3 verse 28 now. I say true baptism into the kingdom akwa ni ho owura ni Greek ni ho, and it's a natural Israel sa system na dem etwam na Christ through the blood Ephesians chapter 2 through the blood bɛka yɛ hina abom ayɛ den ayɛ hen adeɛ ɛba ko nti saa na ɛhɔ no yɛ den ɛte hɔ. So the clothing so they were looking for so to them they knew now smartphone because the Holy Spirit was working in them. They knew that with those that adherent of the old covenant system, as at the time of the preaching of the gospel, they were naked. Okay, but they were also they were in that transition what zone. They were that in transition period. Okay, because Bible may say they had a taste of what was to come. Hebrews chapter 6 verse 1. Okay, they had a taste. First Corinthians chapter 13, they see have the tongues half. So they were looking for the perfection to come. That perfection was Jesus Christ, according to John chapter 1, First John chapter 1 verse 1 to 3. No, that which is no now Christ, now you be as a Christ. So they were looking for Christ to come. And indeed, they knew that Christ will come, in their time, okay, to redeem them from those who persecute them. And sana them, we time we know I baby and new one no new time no and as a new video no next video no na share bibi Hebrews no na yehu de no but say kind no okwa YouTube or betuma subscribe to your YouTube channel no the hour of prayerism and after the hour of prayerism until you subscribe your videos in bebree ho betumi eden enye bi ahwe na ye nyina yate yankopon ne asem ase nti until say e be share biem no efrem onua Solomon Bedu a me wo Rabbi Kofundua Church of Christ ti o subscribe ya bia betumi edi nkomo e wo YouTube so me use me din na Solomon Bedu ti no so obehu me ho na yetumi edi nkomo e wo private chat so say if that is what you prefer ti yankopon kan ye ho na hira ye na wo na adom ti amen.